Hello, I'm glad that you're here. This is just a little video about me and my friend Blake's time in... Well, after a long night of driving, we had finally made it to Death Valley, and word to the wise, it is a fool's quest to drive 5.5 hours after a full day of exploring Sequoia. So, after a late wake up and a small drive, we were finally inside the park. Just a few miles in and we had made it to Zabriskie Point. This spot is a perfect little preview to the landscape of Death Valley. It just has a bunch of really cool formations caused by...
erosion.
The only downside to the spot was the lack of shade to unload and load film, and all the direct sunlight gave me some pretty severe light leaks. Luckily, the only composition I care about out of this bunch got away light leak free. I just enjoy how this one gives me a sense of scale of how vast these formations are, cause they really do go on forever. But after that, we decided to move along down the road to the Death Valley End, which I was not expecting whatsoever. This place made it really hard to understand how people up and die in the park. It was so green and lively, it almost made Retrochrome look like it had some amount of saturation to it. We also found some open maintenance doors that led to some weird backrooms area. It's not trespassing if the door is open, right? There are a lot of little pull-offs like these throughout the park. I've always thought of Death Valley as this barren, dangerous place, which it still is, but that mental image gets a little shattered when there's essentially a strip mall 10 miles into the park. We stopped by some place called the Last Kind Word Saloon that didn't have beer, but they did have whiskey.
It's whiskey time, brother.
Of all the shots I expected Retrochrome to not show up on, this would have been at the top of the list. So I'm never going to pretend like I understand this film ever again. Well, like every other batch of white guys with a few drinks in them, we decided to try and hit up the golf course. The Devil's Golf Course, that is, where everything's a hazard and if you get above par, Satan forces you to pick up pennies off of a lubed up floor. Remember what I said about the sunlight making it difficult to load film? Yeah, these light leaks really kill the mood. Fortunately, I got a backup on Retrochrome, but, you know, it's Retrochrome, so it's got more grain than whole wheat. I thought it'd be neat to have Blake stand off in the distance in this vast salt field, but as it turns out, midday light with a white surface just creates a really harsh image. But I don't think the composition is terrible. I wish we could have stayed in the park a few more days so I could shoot all these locations at sunrise or sunset, but life's hard because we only had a day there, which meant it was off to the next spot at Badwater Basin.
$10 and I'll sip it.
This here is the lowest point in the United States of America, standing at 282 feet below sea level. It is very flat, very salty, and a much further walk to get to it than it looks like from the parking lot.
It's cool how like these almost like plates of dirt, like cracked. I mean, they are technically just many tectonic plates on the surface in a sense.
That's not
like that's how it works. No, this is how it works.
You don't know what a tectonic...
There's no water in sight. They lied to us.
There isn't even any bad water here. It's all no water.
Here's Russell using his little rangefinder. He's just mad that I know camera things.
I have no idea what happened with this one or why it turned out so contrasty. This would have been another great golden hour shot, but oh well.
I was gonna say I love him for his differences and his creativity, but sometimes he's not a patient boy.
Sometimes Daddy gets angry.
It was time to send Blake out into no man's land for another go at the lonely boy on the salt flat picture.
Here we go again. Russell makes me walking into the abyss.
I think this one turned out a little bit better. Still not a fan of the lack of colors, but I think the foreground and background are a lot more nondescript, which suits this composition nicely.
So how was the salt from the salt flat?
It's pretty filthy.
Well, you've figured out the pattern by now. It was on to the next site, and getting to this one really required us to push the Prius to its limits by taking it off-road.
This is not the car for this.
If you're wondering why Blake's so nervous, it's because the rental's under his name. But all was well, and we made it to the trailhead for the natural bridge.
Pretty cool.
About 15 minutes later, and we were there. I tried to move as quickly as possible to set up my camera before more people arrived. There was already one couple leaving the trail that was taking their sweet time making their way around the corner, but I thought they would make a nice 35mm subject. If only I knew how bad retrochrome was when I was making these decisions. Just as they were about to go out of frame, an entire group rounded the corner, and I think my face says it all. After another solid 20 minutes of just waiting around, I finally got this, which I'm actually really happy I waited around to get. As far as natural formations go, that's one point to erosion. We walked on a little bit further to see what was up the trail, and I didn't find any compositions, but it was a really cool hike.
So this is basically just like a dried up river.
Yeah, every time it rains or there's enough rain, there's a river here.
Ooh, I want to be there.
Just water wings in a dream.
That would be so cool.
I think this is usually where it ends.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Got it. This might be the end of the road.
It's the end of the flocks.
It's okay. Russell is full on bouldering. How the f are you gonna get down?
Carefully.
Okay.
This is just so slippery.
Nice.
That hurt.
I bet.
So, even after all that climbing, I couldn't find a composition, but Blake went a little further ahead to see if there was anything cool.
And now, I venture into the unknown. Without Russell, because who needs a guy like that? I don't know how much further this goes. This looks like it might be the end. It's not the end. I'll just keep going. Alright, well, that was cool. Time to go back.
Ultimately, we were running out of daylight, and we decided to see one more spot before we went to our sunset destination. So we downclimbed and made our way back to the car. Just a hop and a skip down the road, and we were at the parking lot for the Artist's Palette. As cool as the mountains were, this spot had a very nice overlook of the valley area, so I split off from Blake to get my final shot of the roll. I think this one is my favorite of the day. It's just compositionally really strong, and I couldn't be happier with the color rendering. It was the perfect way to cap off the roll. And with that, we began the trek to the Mesquite Flat sand dunes for sunset. Just one issue. The sun was going to set in about an hour, and we were a 45-minute drive away from the dunes. So I truly floored it to make it there with enough time to scout out some shots. While we're making our way there, let me tell you a quick side story. A few months ago, I met up with a new friend of mine by the name of Logan Elder. This fellow is a great photographer and also just a really nice guy. Since it was our first time meeting, he gifted me a roll of Cinestill Red Rum, which, if you couldn't tell, is a Redscale film. Knowing that this trip was going to be happening, I decided to save it for Death Valley, because I figured the red tint mixed with the desert landscape would make it look like I'm photographing Mars. So, thanks for the film, Logan. Anyway, back to the dunes. The sun was getting dangerously low, so unfortunately I really had to run and gun some of these compositions. Yeah, Redscale is pretty cool. I literally had to change my entire workflow for scanning to actually make these show up correctly, but overall, I'm glad I used Red Rum for this. The dunes definitely provide a super unique texture for this particular film. At this point, me and Blake actually split up because he wanted to go to the tallest dune and I had more shots to get through, so we both got to work on our respective journeys.
I gotta make it to the big dune back there before sunset. So I'm literally running through the desert dunes without my flip-flops on. Russell's somewhere back there.
This may be one of the coolest sunsets I've ever witnessed in my entire life.
I don't know if I can climb this dune. It looks steep, but we're gonna try.
I have no earthly idea where Blake is right now.
Not many of these stood out as great pictures, but I was still glad we made it on time to fire off some shots. It was a really great way to start off with Redscale shooting.
Well, I got one shot left and I'm pretty much all out of light. So I'll just, I'll hold on to it for later. We'll see what I can make with it.
That's tiring, but pretty damn beautiful. Now you're gonna listen to me heavy breathe because I'm fat and out of shape.
With one exposure left in the tank, we set off to the nearest saloon at the Furnace Creek village. Over beer, we came up with the idea to head to Dante's View to stargaze, and I knew exactly what to do with my final shot of Redscale. Just one problem: we didn't film any of it. However, I had one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had as a human being up there just gazing at the stars. So I wanted to shut up for a second and try to recreate that moment the best I can for you guys. Well, here it is, the result of exposing Redscale film to the stars for 1 hour. I think it looks really cool, especially the way the star trails are like this odd orange color. I'm a little bit bummed that this car's headlights kind of ruin the silhouette of the mountain, but overall it still adds another element that I think is kind of neat. With that, it was time to begin our drive to Vegas, so I'll pause the journey here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let me know if you had any favorites in the comments. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like the video. It really helps the channel to grow. I hope you have a great day, and until next time.